Well, looking at what moves and what doesn't when I wiggle it, the key seems to be this arm here, which is the adjustment that couples to the focus adjustment. But how I free this from the mechanism is still unclear. I'll have to lift this piece out, I think, and see if there's a coupling there that I can get to. Unless it couples from the bottom and I can lift the whole lot out, I honestly don't see an easy way to achieve that. So, some investigation. I'll try removing this screw. That definitely only holds that piece on there. Does this unscrew? Well, it's a cam. Oh, it'll pull back out of the way. Okay. Now we're still swiveling on something which I can't quite see. Okay, I wonder if there's a screw in from underneath. I suppose it's possible. Well, I'm going to remove this prism assembly at the end here to see if that shows any screw or pin underneath it that might be holding things in place. Well, what do you know? There's a screw hiding under there. That was well hidden. And by the look of the state of that screw, I'm not the first person to get in there. And our rangefinder now hopefully will lift back straight out of the way. Oh, well, that's good. I'm pleased to have that out. I would have rather not have to remove the prism in order to achieve it, but we've done it, so that's the main thing is it's done. I'll put my rangefinder pieces all together in one spot. That's the majority of these pieces anyway. Put my frame counter pieces with the top cover parts. A spacer washer here. No obvious place that sat. It probably was a shim under one end of one of these posts. We'll investigate that later. It may be obvious on the bottom of the rangefinder where that came from. Though I don't see any marks. This lever I can unhook. And it's a bit sticky and dirty. The you can see the grime in here. Now that's dried out grease and there's quite a lot of friction there. Pieces just do not move as smoothly as you'd like. Take that spacer off. There's another washer under there, is there? That gear is staked onto that shaft, much like the corresponding pieces in a retina camera. It'll probably lift off there. I don't think that's a permanent fixture. Yes, right. take note of which way those ratchet teeth go. It's usually pretty obvious because it's got a couple with this piece. Now we'll lift this off. Now this would act to provide some friction. I don't think it would stop it from backing up, but it would certainly provide some friction. So that's a separate piece pressed in underneath there. Probably loose. It's probably stuck there with grease at the moment. This gear will lift off. This screw should unscrew and free up that little gear. Yeah, it does. I'll remove the strap lug, which has 3 screws holding it. Remove this bush from the take-up shaft. Now, I'm not the first person in here because some of these screws are a little bit unhappy looking. I strongly imagine that these screws will be exactly the same screws as been used on the retinas, so I'll have spares available if I need them. Now will that bush come out of there? Yeah. Okay, that's just our advance shaft, if you like. That's very sticky. That'll have probably got a spring in there that stops that. It has got a spring which stops this from revolving backwards. That I'll have to take apart. This lever has no return spring on it. Looking at this, just seeing where the springs connect to, that looks pretty simple. I should be able to unhook that from the post, remove the spring tension from it. There's a washer on the top of that. Let's see if that'll come off. The shaft is screwed into the top plate of the camera by the looks of it. That'll come up. The spring revolves around the collar on the bottom of that screw, and this little bracket just lifts straight off. That really is all the works we've got access to from the top of the camera. The shutter release mechanism down the side here, I don't know how free that is. It seems very stiff. So what I'm going to do is, the bellows I think are fixed to the back of the front standard from the inside. No, they're not. Perhaps under the shutter. I'll remove the shutter again. What I want to do is have the bellows collapse back into the casting so that I've got access down the side in here to flush away any dried grease and rubbish from the sides of this shutter release shaft. So I'll just remove that lens again. Alright, with the shutter and lens assembly removed, I'll remove these 2 screws that hold this plate in position. I'm going to have to remove the focus helical to get any further ahead with this. This is the latch mechanism here, which stops you from being able to collapse the front unless the shutter, the focus is back at the infinity position. You can see how when it's at the infinity position, this lever drops into position and it frees up this part here to allow you to unlatch it. Alright, well I am going to stop at this point and strip down the helical. So with the focus helical, we have a fairly similar arrangement to the retinas. Focus scale ring, outer helical and inner helical. At the infinity position, I'm just going to scribe a line across here so I can put this back in exactly the same place it came from. I'll put a double scribe line there at the base. That should suffice. These screw heads are, I'd like to say that they will look just like new, but they don't. All this is very dirty. The grease is very dried out and sticky and has accumulated a lot of dust and grit. Our focus scale ring should lift off. Like a retina, the bellows are attached to the back of the front standard with screws going right through the mount here. So we remove the 4 of those. It should allow the bellows to drop back into the body, I would think. I can feel something moving. They do. So the bellows are back into the camera body. There are 4 large screws here hold the focus mechanism to the front standard. Again, this is very like a retina. Oh, it's tight. Here you can see I'm supporting that front standard with my finger from underneath while I'm undoing those screws, even at the risk of slipping and stabbing myself, because I don't want to apply undue downward pressure on the struts and potentially bend something. Okay, so that's that. And there should be one of those screws fell in here somewhere. There it is. Okay, so our focus helical. I'll just retrieve these screws. Six screws hold this plate on here, the retainer, and if it's like a retina, they'll be the same size screws as held the blade actuating ring in place, and if that's the case, then I can choose the best 4 of them to do that job in future, and the 6 less favoured ones can do this job where the condition of their heads is nowhere near as important. Right, off with the retainer. Lift the inner and outer out of the mount. Now this is brass. The earliest retinas used brass, later ones had alloy, probably zinc alloy, might have been aluminium. And this helical is quite a steep thread, steep rise on that helical. I've got to mark this so that I can find the right point to put it back together. Now I see someone has got an alignment marks here. There's a double alignment mark right there at the point where those front surfaces are level. So someone's done the job for me. Better than that, there's another set of lines here doing the same job, and here is my line that I scribed on here to align this with the focus scale ring. So the camera has been serviced at least twice before, down to this level. Now I can look into the camera body and look at the state of these levers. Now that lever looks like it's held in with a screw there. It's hinged on a screw, and it's just spring tension holds it down at that point, so I can probably get that lever loose. I'm more interested in the shutter release on this side of the body. And I can see, get you positioned so you can see it. Yeah, I can see a bracket here that holds this to the body. That's held in with a screw. 2 screws. So it's likely that if I undo those screws, I'll be able to lift this shutter release part out of the body. And if I can lift it out of the body, I can clean it all, make sure that it's all moving smoothly. It couples to the shutter release at the base of the camera. Here you can see that. You can see the action down here. Basically it's just a change of direction of movement. This piece acts on a lever, swings the lever across. Swinging the lever across, it picks up this arm, which would release the shutter. And all this is a bit dirty and grimy, and there's a little bit of corrosion there too. I'm looking to see if the door could be removed from the camera body with any ease. It looks like a hinge pin screw at this end and at the other side. If I remove the other struts, I may be able to do that and lift the door off. That would be ideal, but I'm not going to push my luck. Okay, so that's our rangefinder coupling there. That moves pretty freely. I can see a bit of dust and grime down in here. I'm looking to see how its return spring up here is hooked onto it. That looks pretty simple. I'll take that screw out and see if I can get that lever off. That might be easier said than done. No, it is turning. It's a shoulder screw. Can you see any of that? Yeah, there's a shoulder screw there. Can I get this arm up now? Oh, it's been held down by its spring. Hang on. Trying to see what stops this arm from lifting up at this end. I might have to remove this screw. Something else is tying this together and I'm not seeing it. What have I got to achieve? I've got to get this arm back past the front standard here so I can swing it up out of the way. I don't think it can be readily done. It's the tip of this arm is held in place with a couple of screws there. I can only get at these at a bit of an odd angle, so no wonder the screw heads don't look very happy. Oh, if I half collapse this, I can get those at a better angle. I'll try that. No, I can only get one of them at a better angle. Well, I may be able to be forced to clean that in place, I think, rather than delve into this too deep. Oh, hang on. Where there's a will, there's a way. Well, I was able to remove the two screws that hold these struts in place. There's one either side, and that just allowed me a bit more freedom to get in here. Now what I'm going to do now, because I can see with those out the way, I've got better access through here. I'm going to remove this hinge pin screw at this point, down in here, and effectively make this lever, hinged lever, two separate pieces. Now the spring has stayed attached to this arm, so I can see exactly how it goes. And that should allow me to lift this arm out of the body, I hope. Well, with some wriggling it does. So that's my rangefinder coupling removed, and it means that I've got access here to clean this plate on the side, get rid of that sticky old grease. And I want to do much the same job for the shutter release on the other side of the camera. Now there's a rivet here on that lever. There's a rivet, and it probably tracks in a slot in the body, I would imagine. And I think that if I remove these screws, well, can you see that bracket? Yeah, I think if I remove the screws on that bracket, I can swing this across, lift that out, that pin out of its slot, and slide this whole thing out. I had a look at the hinge pins, the main hinge pins for the door in the bottom corners. Now they're exceptionally awkward to get at, and it appears to me that one of them at least is not exactly in square, so I suspect that they were always a fight to get in place. They probably had their technique in the factory, but that's probably not going to help me. Yes, okay. So there's actually a return spring here on the back of that rivet. I thought there was and it does run in a slot. See if I can get that return spring off. If it'll unhook easily, I'll unhook it. Yeah, it does. Okay, and that allows me to free this up from the body. And you can see it's just a bit sticky. And you can see this is the action here at this end. It pushes down, and as it pushes down, it pushes the other piece across. And that's all just grimy. I don't think I'll be stripping this down any further because, as I say, it's getting those two hinge pins out there looks pretty close to impossible to me, and most of this other mechanism is certainly riveted together. That's our shutter release arm there, is it? Yes, it is. That's sticky. I'll see if I can just take that off its pivot and clean that. Oh, this is a sticky piece here. That should move freely, and it sticks. You can hear the squeak. It's moved by this tab at the back here, which of course could also be sticky. I'll see if I can remove that. In no case can you get your screwdriver into the screw slots at 90 degrees. Okay, that screw's loose. Right, so that's the other component, and that's again is all grimy. I think I have all the important components out now and have them sitting here on the bench top. So I'm going to clean all this, clean the cavity inside the body, get rid of all the sticky old dried out grease and rubbish. Any surfaces that I can get to that show corrosion, I'll try and buff it away. Any sliding levers that appear to be bent, I will straighten up. That certainly doesn't look quite straight to me. No, it's got a few wiggles in it. And then I'll start reassembling stuff with fresh lubricant and hopefully check everything as I go. Oh, that's the catch. I was just wondering what this lever was running down inside the side of the body here, but that's our catch. That releases the front of the camera. And that's a little bit crusty looking too. Okay, well, this is just naphtha and cotton bud material from here on in, I hope. Well, there's not much to see here, but I have my shutter release components back in there, moving smoothly and freely, and they return to the rest position nicely. So I've still got to get my work done on the other side of the camera here with this rangefinder coupling. Well, with the rangefinder coupling and the shutter release now working smoothly, I can turn my attention to cleaning up that focus helical and getting that reassembled. That I think will have to be soaked go into the ultrasonic cleaner in some naphtha. That grease is very nasty, it's very old, and I think it's going to be reluctant to come off.